If you're an HVAC residential contractor and you're trying to be all things to all customers, you're nothing to anybody. You know, the reality is it's different strokes for different folks. There's different kind of customers out there, and you can take that market and divide it up and decide which group you're going to approach, which group you're going to target, and which groups you should avoid. So we just finished up an awesome 2-day event here in Colorado Springs at the Broadmoor Hotel. I want to share this 10-minute clip with you that talks about the market thirds and how you can't be everything to everybody. You got to focus on the segment that you want to attract. I think the most important thing to remember is 100% of the market is not your market, right? Basically, you can divide it into 3 sections. You've got your value-motivated customer, the customers we all love, right? They value, they value quality. They're willing to pay you a few bucks more to have it done right. And then you have the price-based consumers, the people that don't care about anything except the cheap price. The problem we get into is because of something called confirmation bias. We tend to remember the things that are most painful. Any gamblers in here? Anybody play? I play a lot of blackjack, and I've won a lot at blackjack. I won enough to buy a new Ferrari one night years ago, and I remember a little bit, but I also remember the night I lost $25,000 and wanted to jump off a bridge. It's like the losses were way worse than the wins, and we remember the losses. We remember the bad things that happened, and so it's confirmation bias. We see the things we expect to see. So we have one bad experience with a really cheap customer, and we start thinking, oh, they're all that way. You have to remember, not of them all are that way. It isn't a perfect third like this, but there's a lot of value-based consumers out there. I happen to be one of them because I didn't have anything in my life for 39 years, and I work hard now. I make a good income, and if I'm going to buy something, I'm going to buy the good stuff. You'll see tonight. I buy the good stuff because I know there's a price for going cheap. If you come to my house, we have hailstorms here every summer, and we've had our roof replaced probably 3 times in the last 20 years because of hailstorms. We're in just a bad alleyway here that comes over those mountains, and the temperature changes or something, and it just all turns to hell and goes to hell, and so we've had to change the roof. Every time it happens, you know what we have? We have the roofing contractors coming from all over the country, flooding into Colorado Springs, and they're knocking on your door, right? When we have a storm, it's not uncommon that we'll have 8 or 10 or 12 companies knock on our door within a 2 or 3 day period following the storm. And out of those 8 or 10 or 12, half of them will start their conversation like this. Mr. Homeowner, just so you know, none of these other companies out here will outprice us, outsell us. There's nobody who will beat our price. In other words, we're the cheapest. I'm a value-based consumer. I'm the guy over here in the green. You just lost my business. Like, there's no way you're getting into my house. I got my stuff in here. Last thing I want is the cheapest roof I could find. Doesn't make any sense. So we all kind of know with the price-based customer, you take the cheap customer in number 2 there, and you lay 3 bids out in front of them, they're going to get rid of the most expensive one, and they're going to look at the mid-range and the low range, right? But the value-based consumer is just the same. If I have 3 bids in front of me, what do you think the first one is I eliminate? The cheap one. There's no way. I know there's a price for going cheap. Right? Most homeowners are smart enough to know this. I'm going to look at the middle and the high end. And if I think the middle guy can do quality work, I might go with that guy. But, you know, we had our house repainted, the interior, a couple of years ago. My wife saw 3 or 4 different companies. And there's a company here in town called Greg Unseth Painting, been around for 40 years. And I said, be sure and call Unseth, just because I've been seeing him around for 40 years. You know, it must be good to stick around 40 years. She talks to them. She talks to 2 or 3 other companies. She goes with Unseth, which naturally was the single most expensive company in town. So I just asked her, I said, so why'd you go with Unseth? She said, you wouldn't believe the experience I had with this guy. He came in the house, he asked me questions, we walked around the house, he had suggestions about maybe we do this trim and this color and this, that, and he just had so many suggestions and ideas, and a couple that I wanted to do, he's like, man, you're not going to like that, and changed my mind. He was just super helpful. The whole experience was awesome. I said, well, that's great. I'm sure they'll do a great job. Well, as it turns out, when they came to do the painting, I was home. And so I go to the front door. He introduced himself. He steps in. My wife comes in the foyer. We're standing there talking. And he says, hey, well, today's the day. And I really want to just take some time and make sure that we're on the same page. And what I remember from a couple of weeks ago is what you want to do. So can we walk around the house? We spent 20 minutes going room by room by room, him recounting, we're doing this here, right? We're doing this here. Making sure we're all on the same page. Not just assuming the painters are going to somehow know exactly what she agreed to with him. This goes on for 20 minutes. Everyone in the house, talk about it, make sure we're good. We get back to the foyer, and he's like, so, we ready to go? I'm like, well, yeah, well, you need some painters. I mean, you doing it yourself? He goes, oh, I got painters. He opens the front door, and there's 5 or 6 painters lined up, like 7 little dwarfs. It was unbelievable. They just lined up, and they were all clean. They had their little painter's outfit on. They were just standing there kind of with their hands crossed, waiting for the word. He brings them into our house one at a time, introduces them. It's Mrs. Long, it's Mr. Long, blah, blah, blah. And he would give us his name, and it was every one of them. You get them all in the foyer, it's like, all right, let's go to work. And then the guy says, I'll be here at 8 o'clock every morning. It was a 3 or 4 day job. I'll be here every morning at 8 o'clock, and every afternoon at 2 o'clock, I'm going to call you and see if there's any issues or anything. And like clockwork, every day he was there, 2 o'clock he called. It was the most amazing contracting service experience I've ever seen in my life. And I saw why she got the impression from him on the sales call that it was going to be that way. And that's why she went with him. I'm not sure if they use better paint. I have no idea. Paint's paint, as far as I'm concerned. They probably all buy Sherwin-Williams or whatever. But it was the service and the experience. There's a group of your customers out there, a third of them, that are looking for that experience. People like me, maybe like you, that are looking for the overwhelming experience of service and quality and warranties and after the installation service. And those people are willing to pay a couple of bucks extra to have it done right. Now, you also have your cheap consumers, and you know how bad they are. If you've ever made the mistake of lowering your price to get one, they're miserable human beings. You will never make them happy. Now, here's the interesting thing. The group of number 1, they expect the full presentation and education. They want to understand what's going on. They want to understand the difference between a bad installation, a good installation. They want to see the components. They're interested because they're willing to spend the money, but they got to be convinced. So you got these 2 people. They're very, very different. The third section down there, your undecideds. A lot of people. It's not exactly thirds. Undecideds. Undecideds might be as much as half the market, by the way. Your undecideds are people who sometimes go cheap and sometimes go value and quality. It just depends on the nature of the purpose. They're the people driving their BMW or their Mercedes-Benz to Walmart. They love the German car. They're willing to spend the extra money because they love cars. When it comes to buying a pair of tennis shoes or blue jeans, not that big of a deal. They'll go save a couple of bucks at Walmart. So there's a lot of those people out there. Probably half the people out there actually are of that nature. But here's the thing about them. They're fantastic customers because they are trying to make the decision, is this one of those times I can go cheap or do I need to go value here? They're evaluating the situation. So you know what? They will listen to you. They will ask you questions because they're trying to make the decision. The guy in number 1, you probably won him in the first 15 minutes because he realizes you're the value-based company, and that's who he wants. They're going to know right away you're different. If they don't know the 15 minutes, they'll definitely know in an hour when we get done with the process. Number 2 doesn't care. But number 3 is like, I just wonder. But this is the great part. Number 1, they'll listen because they're interested. They're trying to find out. They will listen, and they are very easy to influence and convince that this is not the time you want to go cheap, right? We're talking about the infrastructure of your home, your plumbing, your electrical, your HVAC. And so while the people in number 1, they expect the presentation, they expect the education. That's how they make their purchasing decisions, right? But these people will listen, and they're very easy to win over. So imagine this scenario. If your goal is, number 1, if I got a cheap customer, I'm not going to lose any sleep over losing them as a customer, right? Because they were going to make me miserable anyway. But if I can get the third of the value-based consumers, if everything I do is geared towards attracting them, and then I can win over half of the bottom third, how much of the pie do I have? I got half the pie, 50% conversion. And I got the fat, juicy fruit filling part of the pie, not the nasty ass, no fruit filling, crusty side of the pie that nobody wants to eat. So you have to understand going into this thing, because sometimes I'll be doing this and somebody will say, well, what do you do with the guy that always buys just on cheap price and he just, no matter what you say, they want to hear a spiel? I leave. I don't give a shit. It's not my problem. I'm looking for these other people. I'm looking for him too so I can know not to get my feelings hurt. By the way, I will go through my whole presentation as best I can. But, because sometimes you can be wrong. They might all of a sudden change at the very end, so I'm not going to burn the lead. But I'm going into this thing knowing who my target customers are. And that's really, really important because the sales process that we engage in, people in number 1 want it, people in number 3 need it. Number 2, they don't want to hear it, and that's fine. They're the people you can't get a word edgewise. I don't need your spiel. I don't need your spiel. I just need a cheap price. Just need the price, right? You know who you got in your hands. For the most part, I'm going to finish my presentation, but I pretty much know what's coming at the end. So as you can see, you can't be all things to everybody, right? You got to focus on the segment that will make you wealthy and successful. So if you like this kind of stuff, go to the website, weldonlong.com. We're doing events all the time. We'd like to see you at one of them. That's it for today, folks. We'll see you next time. Until then, bye-bye for now.